The gang have their sights on Macintosh jewellery, said to be built like a fortress as no one's ever stolen from there. They get splashed by a passing Zenigata, chasing someone else for once. Zenigata's current target has a boy as a hostage on board. Lupin decides it's better to just run for now, but gets involved thanks to his fishing wire getting snagged on the kidnapper's boat. In the confusion, the boy gets free from his captor. Lupin then nets him as Goemon cuts them loose. As the gang recuperates, they notice the boy is wearing a strange electronically locked bracelet. He soon wakes up and gives his name as Mikhail, or gets cagey when asked why he was kidnapped. He then recognises Lupin and impresses him by listing off some of his past heists. Lupin's put off when Mikhail says he wants to be an apprentice, however. As Jigen grills Lupin on the Macintosh heist, Fujiko appears saying she'll take Mikhail off their hands. He's the son of the scientist Dr. Kazanov, a man who recently died but was researching a method of making seawater drinkable. The gang realise the bracelet likely holds a microfilm containing Kazanov's work as Fujiko leaves with Mikhail. Fujiko's only out for money, however, having brokered a deal with Macintosh for the formula. He has no intention of letting her live, so she helps free Mikhail and tells him to head to Lupin for help. Mikhail explains the situation and Macintosh sends a message telling the gang to bring Mikhail to 40th Avenue if they want to free her. Lupin knows how these situations play out, so he tells Macintosh to turn Fujiko over first. Despite never intending to turn Mikhail over, he races over to Macintosh anyway, telling Lupin to run. In the confusion, Fujiko's blown free and the bracelet has come loose. The gang look over it and discover it's a slideshow of Lupin's capers. Fujiko realises that Mikhail's photographic memory is the key to his father's work. Macintosh has already learned of this and straps Mikhail to a mind-reading machine. Unfortunately for him, the only thoughts he can get are those of his time with Lupin. Lupin manages to infiltrate Macintosh's building. He makes use of a demolition outside and rigs the interior security to trigger for 6 AM. Macintosh keeps probing at Mikhail's mind and is getting closer. 6 AM hits and the bombs go off, with the ventilation system having been hacked to suck in the smoke. While everyone's busy coughing, Lupin breaks in and frees Mikhail. Next stop is their original target, the jewels. Fujiko handles Macintosh and Jigen readies the high-power vacuum on the jewels. The gang also hitch a ride on board to escape. Later, Lupin watches Mikhail help with the formula and everyone rolls their eyes upon seeing that Fujiko is acting as his manager. Decently paced story overall. It was a pretty nice touch giving a subtle clue early to Mikhail's memory being the key to the formula. I don't think anyone actually expected Lupin to hand him over to Macintosh willingly either, as he's never actively wanted a kid to come to harm as much as keeping them out of his hair while he's on the job. Can't help but think of Secret of Mamo too when it comes to Macintosh's mind reader. Given Mikhail as a fan, he might have heard of that whole escapade and applied it to himself. Lupin and Jigen are on the hunt for a man named Ed. They track him down, but he's more than a little suspicious of them. He gets disarmed pretty quickly and starts begging for his life. Lupin offers him a plane ticket in exchange for the location of a store of mafia money. Ed is shot by a pair of men who were tailing Lupin, Connery and Stallone according to some sources. Luckily all they hit was a rubber mask. Meanwhile, Zenigata's being treated to a meal as Interpol's funding is apparently down the drain. His host turns out to be a mafia don, and the boss of Lupin's 2 stalkers. Meanwhile, on a date with a street artist named Peter, Fujiko's approached by Lupin about the heist. For once, she declines, despite learning there's a cool 8 million at stake. The gang track down the warehouse where the money's stored and tamper with one of the vehicles outside. They break in and a shootout ensues. Jigen holds them off while Lupin and Goemon head upstairs and find their prize. The Mafia keep up the pace, but Lupin breaks out. He uses a remote control to mess with the pursuer's vehicle, eventually dismantling it outright. Despite not wanting a part in the heist itself, Fujiko greets Lupin hoping for a share of the spoils. Unfortunately for everyone involved, the money's just newspaper. The Don is able to make use of the supposed theft though, putting a hit out on Lupin. This comes into immediate effect as he and Jigen find a grenade in their lunch. The restaurateur is the culprit and lets slip about the hit. No time to ponder it as a man soon opens fire. Then a woman at a newsstand opens fire. A getaway taxi isn't much help and even the police are in on the hit. Lupin and Jigen escape to a subway, but the passengers also have their eyes on the money. Lupin resurfaces right in front of Zenigata, who despite a money shortage is one of the only people in New York not trying to kill him. He and Jigen take refuge in an abandoned building, though Zenigata keeps watch. One of the mafia men then tosses a bomb inside, though Lupin survives thanks to hiding in a safe. The Don celebrates Lupin's apparent death, unaware he's following behind and overheard about the real money still secretly being in his possession. Following him to his mansion, Lupin's given a bag of goods by Goemon to infiltrate. Fujiko and Peter also arrive, the latter wanting a new canvas for his graffiti and deciding the mansion is ideal at Fujiko's suggestion. Peter's paint guns block out the Don's windows, and Fujiko uses this to infiltrate the mansion. She gets caught as she's about to make off with the money. The gang decide to make their move, using a smoke generator and a battering ram. As the Don and his men try to escape, Goemon pelts them with fruit to knock them out. With the money in hand, the gang gives Zenigata a courtesy visit as he laments Lupin's apparent death by exploded building. I wonder if this was a bit of a soft run for Legend of the Gold of Babylon's portrayal of the Mafia. Certainly some similarities, with the main pair of henchmen tailing Lupin as well as just the general over-the-top goofiness in how they're shown as a whole. In fact, goofy is how I'd describe this episode overall. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't entertained with it at the very least. The gang blast their way through to their latest stack of gold. Unfortunately, it's all a holographic projection. The alarm's triggered, but the gang make their escape pretty quickly. There's some resistance along the river, but nothing the gang can't flee from. Zenigata's called in by the manager, Spaulding, to get the gold back from Lupin. The gang have done some research and found the likely thieves to be a couple named John and Mary. Not those ones. Lupin's plan is to simply confront them directly on the gold's location. He encounters Zenigata in the Alps and has him chase after him through the mountains. Zenigata starts to lose focus thanks to the cold weather, so Lupin comes to his aid. Eventually they find a cabin, but Zenigata takes the chance to cuff Lupin despite his help. An elderly couple resides in the cabin and tend to Lupin and Zenigata, offering a phone for Zenigata to call up Interpol. While he's distracted, Lupin offers to challenge them to a poker game. When he suggests a pile of gold as the wager, they start acting shifty. Zenigata, meanwhile, has had his call hijacked by Fujiko, which acts as a signal for her to make her move. Lupin tries to out the old couple as John and Mary, but Zenigata's not buying it. Just as he accuses them of working for someone else to steal the gold, a pair of men break into the cabin, asking for Lupin. It's not a friendly call either. Fujiko checks up on the bank, only for Spaulding, confirming Lupin's theory, to hold her up. Lupin is seemingly gunned down in front of everyone, leaving Zenigata grief-stricken. Fujiko and Spaulding head to the cabin, with her suggesting that John and Mary are plotting against him. Lupin's killers also mention being hired by someone, which the old couple suspect to mean Spaulding. As the gold's location is revealed, Fujiko and Spaulding arrive and the old couple, exactly who you think they are, start throwing accusations back and forth. Lupin takes this moment to reveal he was playing all of them, the hitmen being the other members of the gang and him wearing a bulletproof vest. He tosses a snowball outside as he explains all of this, and John and Mary are unmasked. Zenigata reveals he had a team ready himself. He notices too late that Goemon's nowhere in the cabin, however. Outside, Goemon cuts the supports for the cabin as the now much larger snowball rolls back and knocks it loose. As the cabin slides down the mountain, Zenigata struggles to grab Lupin. Lupin just uses a saw to cut that half of the cabin away. Too bad for Lupin, his half heads right to a cliffside. The gang escape, but the gold goes over. Lupin's not too bothered as spring is just around the corner. This one's the first one to use the second intro for the record. A bit predictable as to the old couple being John and Mary, but entertaining enough. Maybe one day Zenigata will actually learn to check for a pulse when Lupin's been seemingly killed. Granted, who knows, maybe he was aware it was a ruse if he had an Interpol team at the ready. Zenigata is keeping watch on the Eagle of Herazade. Being on a ship doesn't stop Lupin, of course. Lupin tosses the eagle to Fujiko, who leaves him low and wet. She's currently smitten with Fallon, supposedly a prince of Herazade. Currently, Herazade is in the midst of a revolution, attempting to overthrow the corrupt dictator Tolfa. The problem being, his castle's defences are under the control of a supercomputer. Fallon intends to return the eagle statue to a bigger statue. As the story goes, it'll result in Tolfa's downfall. Fujiko and Fallon break into the castle, unaware that Lupin's also there. Fujiko disables the security and Lupin greets her. Fallon heads to the statue's hall but gets intercepted by Goemon. Lupin soon joins and they fight over the eagle statue. Unfortunately for all of them, Tolfa is alerted with Zenigata in tow. Jigen arrives in a helicopter to help out. As they fly off, Fallon loses his grip, landing back in the statue hall. He manages to avoid the auto turrets, but he's arrested and put on display before his inevitable execution. The gang are tracked down, but all Tolfa's men find is wreckage. The gang manage to hide, but end up in the sights of Fallon's rebels. They explain the statue story, but Lupin laughs it off. Fujiko isn't pleased at this and races off, aiming to free Fallon. Lupin decides to tag along as he doesn't want Fujiko to come to harm. He has a plan involving tinfoil. The next day, Tolfa's men pick up a fleet of aircraft on radar. All they find is tinfoil tied to balloons. They're given the runaround and end up draining their fuel. Or at least what was left of it, thanks to Jigen draining it before he came to help the night before. Tolfa demands an update, but the autoguns go haywire. The gang have already infiltrated security and set mice upon the computer's wiring. Tolfa, of course, has no luck calling the security room as Goemon frees Fallon. Thanks to this, he's forced to use his own personal control switch to disable the whole system. With the castle security in disarray, the gang approach the statue. Lupin moves to replace the eagle statue, but the statue turns out to be Zenigata in disguise. Tolfa then appears, intending to kill everyone, Zenigata included. At this, Fallon grabs the eagle and places it in the statue, despite getting shot for his trouble. Tolfa climbs up on the statue, as it lights up and seemingly summons a thunderstorm. He's struck by lightning, allowing everyone to escape and the rebels to take the castle. Fallon thanks Lupin for his help and tells Fujiko to go with the gang as he knows she's not the type to settle down. You go into this expecting Fujiko to fleece Fallon right at the end, and she doesn't. Throws you for a loop given her usual nature with this situation. It was nice to see Jigen on top of things too, draining Tolfa's air force of fuel. Not his first revolution after all. Next time, a hunt for a dead man's gold, heist help from a dolphin, a search for gold in Africa, and the grip of lottery fever will get us to episode 40. Until then.